Welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys, sponsored by Checker, background screens for your faith or volunteer organization. The Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization. Our mission is to inspire, influence, and impact church safety and security teams. We are protectors, guardians, ambassadors, and shepherds. We are about all things church safety and security, which starts with a ministry mindset and a servant's heart. Join us for the next hour as the Church Safety Guys unpack safety, security, leadership, and ministry operations with your hosts, James McGarvey and Mike Scully. This broadcast is also available on social media, YouTube, your favorite podcast platforms, and on the all-new Church Security app.
Well, welcome to the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys. I am James, and I am joined at this time by my co-host and fellow in Church Security, fellow in crime, Mike Scully.
How are you, James?
I'm doing good. It's been a long week, and
2 weeks. 2 weeks. We had the break with the Super Bowl that I didn't watch. I stayed away from all technology. Because we're going to talk about technology tonight, but also I was like, you know what? I don't have to be on the show tonight, so I'm just going to take a break.
I went to a Super Bowl party. I watched about half of it and then realized that neither team was playing. So sorry. For those of you that don't know, I grew up in New England. So, my team wasn't playing. So
exactly. Well, our quarterback retired. So.
Yeah. I have to say that now. In all fairness, we had a Super Bowl party because I'm in Ohio, so there was a lot of folks that were eager for Cincinnati to win, and my son was like, "Hey, Dad, can we go to the Super Bowl party?" So I was like, "You know what? We're gonna go and we're gonna have fun." And I watched the game to about halftime, and then my son, the entire time actually played with his friend on his Nintendo. So he wasn't even watching it, but it was a good bonding time. So for everybody involved. But yeah, it's been a couple weeks, and we've stayed busy, and hopefully as always, we continue to get requests from different churches. And for those of you that aren't familiar with how to reach out to us, you can certainly do that through our website at churchsafetyguys.com. And we continue to receive message requests actually through our Church Security app as well, which you can download at churchsecurityapp.com. And feel free to reach out to us if there's some way that we can help you in your ministry. We are honored to do that. So we definitely want to help where we can. So go ahead. You were going to add.
I was going to say, and some of that is, whether it's looking at plans, looking at Google Earth of a given layout around the building, we've done some of that. We've looked at ops plans. We've looked at security assessments. We've looked at planning and scheduling, and all different details. Pretty much the sky's the limit. We've had the question come up, so we try to help where we can. And often James and I are hopping on calls midweek and doing conference calls or Zoom calls with folks and doing those consultations. So it's always a different call. It's like every time we're talking. There's common trends. Don't get me wrong, but every call is very unique.
It is. And we certainly have a listing of different resources and actually conferences, trainings coming up. There's a conference in Michigan coming up here, Berry County Sheriff's Office. That'll be the end of February. And then also in March, towards the end of March, actually John Riley and I will be doing a conference with Grand Rapids Police Department. They're sponsoring both of us to come up, and really looking forward to that, working with them and talking to some churches and synagogues up in the greater Grand Rapids area. So definitely you can find out about that. We're in the middle of planning another church security essentials conference down in Orlando. Lord willing, that will be May, and not something you want to miss. We've got some great sponsors, great keynotes lined up. Really excited about that. But we will probably have more details on the website about that I'm thinking this week. So keep an eye open for that, and definitely be a fun opportunity and a good opportunity to learn new stuff and
it's still cold
folks.
for some folks, even all the way up. So coming down to
Yep.
Orlando is never always a good trip. I mean, this will be May, so it's not quite as bad anymore. But I'm glad to have traded in my shovel for my cowboy hat. So
yeah, you guys, you're in Texas, but you guys have been hammered with some interesting stuff today, or more recently. I was going to say today we were actually up in the 50s where I am. The last 2 days or 3 days have rained nonstop, and I'm very thankful that it's rain, not snow. Because if it had been snow, I would be shoveling out right now and not on the broadcast. For sure.
Yep.
But good stuff. So, well, tonight or this broadcast, we're going to talk about technology and church security, and there's certainly a lot of different aspects of that we could cover. We want to talk a little bit about radios, some surveillance equipment, and then also cameras, and just kind of touch base on that a little bit. And I'm going to actually bring in Billy Daubenmire with 2A radios, and I can't think of a better guy to bring in to talk about technology with. So, Billy, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So let's start with the radio piece of it. I know probably one of the biggest questions that we get, and sometimes I'll tag you in the groups and you see it too. But one of the biggest questions that we get is, what's the best radio to purchase for my team? And then also, what's the difference between, GMRS versus UHF versus, VHF, and everything in between. So if you could just start us down that road and kind of explain those, I think that would be helpful for folks.
Sure. All right. So the least expensive radios on the market are FRS. FRS stands for Family Radio Service. And so when they were originally made, it was limited to just families using it. So in around 2018, 2019, the federal government changed the rules and said that businesses can also use FRS. But if a business is using an FRS, and from the government's perspective, I would call it a church of business. The challenge with using FRS in a business environment is that there's lots and lots of FRS radios out there. And so it's very hard to find a private channel. And it's hard to keep somebody from figuring out what channel you're on and then interfering with what you're trying to do. So that's FRS. The next one is GMRS. We get asked about that one a lot. GMRS stands for General Marine Radio Service. General Mobile Radio Service. That technology requires an individual license. And so if we had 6 radios in the church, each person with that radio is supposed to have a license to use it. Now, the FCC doesn't enforce that too much, but the people, there's a group of folks out there that are very loyal to GMRS radios, and so they have GMRS networks. And if you end up on one of their frequencies and privacy codes, they're not pleasant to deal with. They'll get you off of their channel simply by the way they talk to you. So most churches are going to use what we would consider LMR frequencies. And most of them are going to use LMR frequencies in the UHF band. A church shouldn't be using VHF radios unless the local fire department or the local police department donated VHF radios. But if the church is buying radios, they should not be looking for, they shouldn't buy VHF at all. VHF is not best for indoor and combination of indoor and outdoor use. So then once you get to that, then you get to the range of, what's a good radio and what's a bad radio. And I always chuckle when these posts start coming up on Church Safety Guys. I'll see there's somebody using a $20 Retivus radio, and then another guy pipes in and he's using a Motorola XBR 6000, which is a $1,500 radio.
Sure.
And the reality is they both work, right? So that really cheap radio is going to work, and the really expensive radio is going to work. What we try to do, and what I'm trying to do is always I try to find what's the best radio at the budget for the church, without killing them, right? So because I can do, from a technology perspective, we can do the same thing with a $300 radio that we can do with a $2,000 radio. And so if there's another two-way radio guy on here shaking his head going, that's not true. The reality is that for what we would do in a church environment, a radio between $150 and $300 is going to do everything they need it to do. It's going to have plenty of power, plenty of channels, plenty of privacy, all of that kind of stuff. If we start going in those $400 and $500 radios, we're paying for technology that we're never going to use.
Right. I chuckle about that because I know a lot of churches. I've talked to a lot of churches, and I've visited churches where, like, if we've done an assessment or something like that, and we've, I've had folks show me the Baofeng or the all of the China brands, right? It seems like every time I go back on Amazon, there's new ones.
Sure.
But what's interesting to me, and we started down that road ourselves, but what was interesting to me was I found a lot of my frustration of dealing with them was based off of the age of our building and a lot of interference from different things. And those radios just didn't hold up for the size of our property, the church campus. There was a lot of dead spots. There was a lot of spots where it just made communication extremely challenging. And we were able to upgrade. And I know some of our folks, including myself, like typically my personal radio that taps into our frequencies are a little bit more expensive than the ones that we have at church, because I went out and I purchased one, and we've had a few other folks do the same thing where they've purchased and just feel better about having something that's a little bit higher quality, better sound, that sort of thing. But one of the cool things is that you guys do is that we've reached out to you a couple of times, like the church safety guys have, and you've been great about really doing that assessment and saying, well, the Motorola would be great, if you have a Cadillac budget, but what do you guys really need versus, you don't necessarily need the Cadillac. You need something to communicate, something that I prefer a higher quality radio, so that if I was in a scuffle with someone, or if I dropped it, or if I have a team member drop it, I'm not worried about, it breaking into a million pieces and having to replace it or that sort of thing. But I've always appreciated that about you guys, that when you talk to churches, it's a very open conversation, and it's not like, hey, you gotta, because I've worked with other companies in the past that have been like, you gotta buy these because they're, this is what we're trying to sell this month, and you guys definitely aren't of that caliber. So I appreciate that about you guys. But Mike, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I just picked up 8 Hyteras from Billy for the church that I'm helping out now in Georgetown, Texas. So they'll be getting those soon, and that's a good setup with that. Certainly had the conversation with Billy. What do you recommend? Here's 3 different options. Weigh those out. Looked at that and made the presentation to the leaders, and they made the decision, and they'll be up and running very soon. So
Sure. So we try when we're doing this, we try to, the primary thing is that the church using radios is important. The security team needs to have access to a radio if a situation happens, so that you can get the guys so that they're instantly talking. And two-way radios are unique in that. One of the discussions on the page a week or so ago was about why one of the Wi-Fi two-way radios or two-way radios over cellular was all of a sudden, they're coming out with a traditional two-way radio. Well, the reason they come out with a traditional two-way radio is because there's not a better instant communication solution. When you press the button, somebody on the other end is going to hear it. And so that's important. But then what becomes real important is if I'm trying to sell somebody a $1,200 radio and they can only afford a $50 radio, I'm hurting them. And so that's not what we're going to try to do. We want to make sure that there's a quality radio that's been type accepted by the FCC. So the FCC has decided that it's not going to catch on fire. It's not going to blow your eardrum if you put a headset into it. And it's not going to emit too much radiation. Those are 3 big things that they're trying to make sure happens. And then they're also going to make sure that what you're doing is legal. So the frequency band in the radio is not going to allow you to get on what the police department's using or the fire department's using or any other EMS departments, Homeland Safety, any of that kind of stuff. So we're going to make sure that a radio does that. Then we're also going to make sure that you're getting a radio that doesn't interfere across bands with your microphones inside the church, with Wi-Fi inside the church. Or with the police department, because so many churches now have a police officer, on campus on a Sunday. But we can do that with a radio that's under $100 for a small church or for a new church. And then we have, so for a church that's got a better budget that wants to get a radio that'll do 1-to-1, it'll, have some cool features. We can do that for about $300. We don't have to get into the $1,000 radio to make that fun stuff happen.
For sure. I want to circle back around, because one thing you mentioned is also something that we've talked about at our church, and that was making sure that the frequency and the radios don't interfere with like the mics and the sound guys. What are your thoughts on that exactly? Like, we've had a few churches reach out to us and just say, what's the easiest way to make sure that that we don't have someone keying their mic and actually creating interference, or going over the actual microphone while their pastor is preaching.
Sure. And so that's where the inexpensive Chinese radios like Retivas and Baofeng, where they become a problem, because they've not been type accepted to make sure that they're not having RF interference with those other types of devices. So anything that's any of the major manufacturers in the United States, that'd be Kenwood, Motorola, Hytera, ICOM, and Midland. Those are the big 5. Everything that they make runs through the FCC, and so those are guaranteed not to have those type of issues. They're in different frequency bands, but if they're not, made correctly, then they can cause interference. We actually had an issue in Walmart stores where Walmart imported LED lights, and so LED lights emit radio frequencies. And so the LED lights that they were putting in the stores were actually interfering with the VHF radios they use in the stores. And they were getting, so they were creating white noise, this constant white noise that was coming over the radio. And they were upset with Motorola. And Motorola identified, no, it's actually right. And so it ended up being a good sale for Motorola, because they got to sell a different radio on a different frequency band that didn't cause that interference. But if you're buying the right stuff, that should never be an issue. For sure.
Absolutely. I'd say jump in and talk about headsets, Billy. I know some churches have none. I know some I've worked with different types of headsets. Some are just more over the earpiece. Some are wired in that sense. Some are hardwired, where you have the full kind of surveillance sleeve kit. and everything else. So it kind of Secret Service style. You got the kind of the tube earpiece as well. I know there's different things that are out there.
Sure. So this is another comment we see on the site all the time when we're following the feeds. And so people will say, I need a noise canceling radio because my auditorium's too loud. And so the reality is there's two different technologies that we need to talk about. One of them is noise canceling. And noise canceling is what happens when I talk into the radio. When I talk into a walkie-talkie, are they going to hear the background noise on the other end? And so if you think about if I'm standing next to a fire truck and the fire truck siren's going off, if I talk into my radio, is the only thing they're going to hear on the other side the siren of that fire truck, or are they going to hear my voice? That's noise canceling. And so there's technology that's out there that will block that out, especially with new digital radios. Any digital radio, as they decode, they pull out that noise, the ambient noise around the radio to make it sound better. The other side of that is what I actually hear in my ear. And so I'm in the auditorium and the band is loud. My church, the band's very, very loud, almost concert loud. And so I'm wearing a headset. If I can't hear them, a noise canceling radio is not going to do me any good. I need a noise reducing headset in order to do that. Most of the noise reducing headsets are going to be a surveillance style headset, like Mike was just talking about. It's going to be a clear tube that goes in your ear, and then there's going to be something that goes along with that to help you do that noise reduction. And it'll have a noise reduction rating. On the package, you'll actually see NRR. The most common one's going to be NRR 30.
Sure.
That's something that you're putting on your ear that's going to reduce the ambient noise around you. And that's what you see police officers wearing all the time. That's what you see the band members wearing, right? They've got things up in their ear so that they're blocking the ambient noise so they can concentrate on their part of it. Then it comes to, what do I like and what do I need to do? When I sell headsets to a church, I predominantly try to sell a headset that goes over the ear. Like Mike said, most of the time they're going to be black. My light's just went off. Sorry about that, guys. So they're going to go over the ears. I'm saving electricity right there.
There you go.
So it's a black headset that goes over the top of the ear. I recommend that because multiple people can wear it. And so if I just had this infection in my ears that I've been putting cortisone in my ears for the last week and a half for. And if you guys saw my ears and what they look like with all that cortisone coming out of there, there's no way you're wearing my headset, right? You'd see that and you'd say that's gross. So now Mike's down there in Texas, right? And so it gets good and hot down in Texas. And during the summertime, earwax will run down those clear tubes and they become yellow instead of clear. And so nobody wants to wear Mike's headset. They don't know what Mike's been doing, but they want no part of that.
Sure.
And so we recommend that black headset because you can wipe it down with an alcohol pad and multiple people can wear it. And then we recommend if you want the surveillance headset, you go buy that yourself. And then there's predominantly there's three styles of those. You got the clear tube going in your ear. Then there's going to be one, two, or three wire. A one wire would have a microphone that's going to be right around here. A two wire will tend to have a microphone that you can use. We'll have a push to talk around your wrist right here. And then the three wires would actually have the microphone here, the push to talk here, and then the earpiece. And so that's what the Secret Service uses is the three wire because they want to be really cool. And so they've got a mic here. They've got a push to talk about it someplace else, and you can't see any of it. But for most churches, a single wire surveillance style earpiece is going to cost about $35 for a security guy. And that's perfect. It's going to do exactly what it needs it to do. And then if you want it to be noise reducing, you buy something. There's a company called Decibels. I don't know if you can see that. Decibels makes the best. This is a semi-moldable custom earpiece. Basically, you get this thing, you drop it in a cup of hot water, and then you can mold it to your ear. And it'll work with any surveillance headset that's out there. It's $25. You can't beat it. There's people who will offer $100 solutions for that. We see that custom earpieces is one of the ones that they talk about. And so custom earpieces, you use something like the same material, you stick it in your ear, then you mail it to them, and then they make this and send it back to you. Where you can get a do-it-yourself kit, and if you don't like how it feels, you get it hot again and try again. And it's so you can have your own good security noise canceling and noise reducing for about $60.
Well, That's a
Awesome.
good deal. I mean, I know I've used the simple one wire at the church that I've been at most recently, and that's fine for them. It works just enough, and it obviously has. It's not completely 100% covert, but it's more covert than
Right.
folks walking around. And I do see some will go out a certainly parking lot at different times with if you don't have the range and they're going to be talking via cell phone, so then they'll just have the earbuds in. And
Mhm.
so they're talking as if they're talking on the phone because that's what they're doing. So that's another option as well for that added remote folks if you don't have the
Mhm.
right radio setup, or you don't, maybe you need a repeater or something like that, or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
For sure. One of the other questions that we get asked a lot that I wanted to mention to you, Billy, is the Bluetooth. A
Mhm.
lot of folks ask us about like having a Bluetooth dongle in their radio and an actual earpiece. I know quite a few years ago, I think I looked into it probably 3 or 4 years ago. The technology just wasn't there to be consistent and high quality of anything that I would depend on from a security or safety aspect. But have you seen anything come out more recent, or is there anything in that area that you could recommend?
Yeah, so that, James, that's my least favorite question I get asked.
I know it is.
Right, and so because everybody wants Bluetooth, and so the challenge with walkie-talkies is when you press a button on a walkie-talkie, it's instant, right? And
Right.
so when you receive a phone call, um, your phone rings and you have to
Mhm.
say hello. Well, and there's enough time in that pass off for your Bluetooth headset to wake up, right? So your Bluetooth headset's in standby mode, your phone rings. As soon as your phone rings, it wakes up Bluetooth. And so then when you start talking, you're good. When you're using a walkie-talkie, when you press that push to talk button, there's that there's between a tenth and a third of a second of a delay. Well, if you put Bluetooth on that, there's actually about a 6/10 of a second delay, and that's enough for you to miss the first part of the first word somebody says, and it's
Sure.
very frustrating. So it's getting better, but in traditional, any of the dongles that you get, so and I sell the dongles. People buy them and they want them, and so I'll sell them. But I explain to them when if you go the dongle route, you've got to press the button and then think and then talk. Because if you just start talking, they're going to miss. Who knows how much of it they're going to miss. With the newest radios that are out, they are some of them are Bluetooth capable. The problem with the ones that are Bluetooth capable, whether it's Motorola and Hytera are really the only two that are chasing this right now.
Sure.
Their Bluetooth headsets are as expensive as the radio.
Yeah.
And so you can't go buy a Bluetooth headset off the shelf and make it work with their products. And so because the user experience is going to be bad, so they don't allow that to happen. The other challenge that we get is that somebody buys one of these Bluetooth dongles to work with their AirPods, and Apple doesn't play nice, and so it doesn't work. So you've got to buy a Bluetooth headset specifically for that. And what we've found as we've done this is that if I'm going to sell a Bluetooth dongle, I'm going to sell the headset to go with it so that I can pair it before it leaves my building. Because if you go to, I probably went through 15 before I found one that actually consistently paired with the Bluetooth dongles. And so it's just not, it's a great idea. People like the idea, but the technology is still not there.
It's interesting too, because that falls right in line with you mentioned earlier the app, like the companies out there that use an app for communication. And then I think it was this past week I noticed that company is actually making a radio now that you can use the app with.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had a chuckle because I know that's the other thing that you really don't like is for the sake of the delay. And that's the issue we had. Like we tried to get away from radios and use an app, and where our coverage was, and we're in Central Ohio, we're in Columbus, and we still had cell issues with dropping that call from the app and that delay. And everybody on my team came to me and they were like, hey, I want to use this app on my phone. And I shut it down and I said, no, because we actually had an emergency, a medical emergency. And thankfully our response wasn't delayed, but in the middle of everything, I just made the executive decision. I'm like, look, I'm done with this because I don't want to be messing around with that delay of not being able to push a button and instantly have my folks know I'm directing them. This is what we're doing. This is the communication coming down. So if you have an area, and I'll just say this for our listeners, if you have an area that's more consistent and you want to try the app, of different folks, you're welcome to do that. It didn't work for us. And I know a lot of folks, like we see responses in the social media groups and that sort of thing, that it just doesn't cut it. It doesn't work consistently 100% of the time and enough to do that. But that's kind of how I felt about the Bluetooth as well. Like I think I've gone through 2 or 3 headsets myself with our radios, just testing them. And because of that delay, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but when you have 20, it almost seems like, okay, now I'm fiddling with this. So it's, 15 to 20 seconds and you're responding to something and you're trying to communicate, that can be a big deal. That can make a difference in how something is successfully handled when you're talking about incidents and stuff.
You can also run into, the app shuts down. And so when Motorola created they have a product called the TLK 100. And then there's an app feature that goes with it. And so I was like, well, I can't beat Zello when people are asking me for Zello. So I'm going to sell this Motorola app. And so I had a friend of mine put 10 of his guys on it. And the first day, 3 of them, it shut down. And so he's trying to call them. Well, the app shut down on their phone, and if that happens in an emergency situation, that doesn't happen with walkie-talkies. When you press a button on a walkie-talkie, you're going to hear what's going on the other side. And for what you guys do, you were the first line of safety inside of a church. And so you can't afford to have the chance that an app is going to shut down, or Wi-Fi goes down, or some guy's smart enough to cut the cable coming into the building before he decides to do something bad.
Sure.
You can't have that. And then if you're in a community where there's a tornado, they are bringing in technology to get the cell phones back on, but that's not the first thing they turn back on. And if your church is going to be there helping, if you're doing disaster relief, walkie-talkies are by far the best solution for that.
It's still
go ahead, James.
Oh, I was just going to say it's old reliable, right? The technology is still the best.
Well, we had the apps kind of crash on us when James and I were out at Executive Protection. We were doing a training with Matt Combs in Missouri, and we were using the app to communicate across advanced teams and working through the live scenario. Now, granted, no real lives were in play. We were just kind of testing out at the end of the course, but we had communication failure, and we had that failure because the app crashed. And so we're trying to reload that, get that going back up, and we're in the middle of the highway trying to get our client away, and you know what, that happens. So I've seen it not work under the stress test type situation where we need immediate communication. So I like the old reliable myself.
Sure. So can I put something in real fast?
Yeah, go for it.
So I sold a hospital system in Tennessee. I sold them a bunch of radios that use the Wi-Fi over cellular. And I get a phone call at 8:00 on a Sunday morning. Our system's down. And it was the entire network was down. And they were out radios for about 6 hours because of the manufacturing issue that had nothing to do with them. And so they had all the redundant capabilities they wanted, but the manufacturer software crashed and they were out. So that doesn't happen with walkie-talkies.
No, that's crazy. I can't imagine having a hospital system suffer, but from a first responder perspective, and you're absolutely right. That's what church safety and security, they are first responders before the first responders. And I'll tell you, they're 9 times out of 10 in my earpiece. I want clarity. I want to be able to hear it. I want to be able to respond. And those are just the tools that make it easier and make it more effective, right? So if I don't have that to be able to address it and address what's going on, then it's a game changer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick sponsor break, and we will be right back with you guys. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
With over 50 years of experience with religious and nonprofit organizations, Thomas Alexander Insurance & Associates understands that your congregation is different from a traditional business. We're here to fulfill your needs, coming to you while creating a personal plan for your budget and size. From your local community to around the globe, we are advocates for you. Thomas Alexander Insurance & Associates, your partner in service.
Folks, Church Safety Guy James here. So I wanted to do a quick shout out for an event that you don't want to miss. March 31st from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at the New Hope Baptist Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we are hosting a church safety and security conference. This is a one-day event that's going to have some great content that you don't want to miss. So whether you haven't started a team, maybe you're researching the process, maybe you just started a team, or maybe you have a team that has been running for a long period of time that you feel maybe needs a tune-up. Regardless of your situation, come to this event and there will be some great information for you. We're going to have John Riley from General Response, De-escalation there. I'll be there, and we'll have folks speaking from Grand Rapids PD as well as Absolute Security, all talking about having a ministry mindset with church safety and security. For more information and details on this event, visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com and click on the link at the top of the screen that says training/conferences. We'd love to see you there. Take care.
When you let Checker take care of background checks, you get more time to focus on your ministry. Over 8,000 churches and faith-based communities across the United States use Checker. Checker lets you quickly and easily screen new volunteers, so you'll spend less time on paperwork and administrative tasks. Our fast, accurate background checks reduce turnaround time per applicant by 72% on average. Checker partners with church management systems, including Tithely, Planning Center, Rock RMS, PushPay, and Full Method, so it's easy to integrate into systems you're already using. Trust Checker for faster, easier, more reliable background checks, so you can focus on what brings you all together. To learn more, visit www.checkr.com/church.
We all deal with stress on a daily basis. When not properly managed, we can face burnout, mental, physical, and spiritual burnout. It can be detrimental to serving in church safety and security, as well as other ministries, and affect all areas of life. Coming Back brings biblical guidance for such a dilemma. In the book Coming Back, best-selling author James McGarvey takes a biblical-based approach to address and prevent ministry burnout. As you read Coming Back, you will easily relate to James's shared experiences, be inspired by Scripture, and grow through the practical and applicable instruction found in this much-needed book. This encouraging read will affect you and your team in a positive way to continue the path of ministry with an energized and encouraged spirit. Through biblical and practical knowledge and experience, James shows that it is all about coming back to focus on what matters, coming back to the cross.
The Church Safety Guys help church and place of worship safety and security teams all over North America through our broadcasts, online communities, conferences, trainings, resources, and the all-new Church Security app. Download it today. Help us continue to reach churches by supporting our sponsors, purchasing our resources, and consider becoming a ministry partner by making a monthly or one-time donation. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this broadcast with your team. And now, back to the broadcast.
All right, welcome back from the sponsor break. We are talking about technology and church security, and we have Billy Daubenmire with us today. And we just talked about quite a bit about radios, and I want to shift gears a little bit. We've had a few churches reach out to us, and I want to talk about GPS detection and RF detection. You can kind of see if you're watching, I've got a detector here on the screen. We had a few folks ask us about that. And the reason is because about a year ago, there was a church down south that a pastor was actually arrested for having cameras and surveillance equipment in restrooms, and he was charged. And we had a few churches reach out to us and just say, is there some kind of equipment that we can use to basically go through a restroom, like walk through a restroom, walk through a classroom real quick, and check out that sort of thing. So the quick answer is yes, there is. The long drawn out answer is you can spend quite a bit of money on them. And so most churches aren't going to have the budget to go purchase solid equipment that's consistently high grade for that sort of thing. But I will tell you that this K18 item that I purchased, I think I bought in June of last year from Amazon. I think it was about $80. I just pulled it up and checked it out. It's actually, I think, $40 now. It works well enough, and it's not really a toy, but it's kind of circling that toy, I guess, genre. So just as a quick mention, will it work? It does. There's quite a bit of a learning curve, but I like it because I can turn it on and it will pick up the RF frequency or RF signal of a camera. If something's tied into your Wi-Fi, or something is emitting its own Wi-Fi to not be connected to the church for surveillance type things, it would have to have like a SIM card or something else, nearby that would be generating its own signal that it would connect to. But depending on how much you want to get into it, again, it was $40. It wasn't a big expense. But it seemed like, a decent tool that I could walk through a classroom or restroom or any area that I wanted to do a quick investigation on and pull up that signal if there was something there. Whether you decide to do that or not, obviously that's up to you in your church. But I did want to mention it because we've had a few folks ask us, is there a way that we can kind of prevent that from happening, or making sure that somebody doesn't stick a cell phone or SIM card or something like that in a restroom to spy on people, or maybe in one of the pastor's offices or something like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. The next topic that I want to jump into and chat about is actually cameras, but specifically body cameras, because this is something that we have talked about. We use them at our church, and I found out recently that we're one of the few churches in the country that started using them. But and I know a lot of churches don't. And I know a lot of churches, whenever we talk about it, we get a lot of resistance that folks will say, well, that's not for me. I'm not spying on people. But I will say that there's very little difference to me. There's very little difference in having a camera 5 feet above you in your ceiling and a camera on your person. And for us, it's been very successful with having the appropriate policies and procedures to cover the access to it, just like we do with our cameras in the ceiling. And the other piece of it that I think helps is one, it raises awareness, and the second aspect of that is it de-escalates. And when I say de-escalates, people know that when I have a safety shirt on or safety lanyard or whatnot, and I'm walking around and I'm suited up and I have that camera on me, people know that if I'm not recording, I have the potential of instantly being able to record. And there's something about seeing that camera on a person versus where's my phone versus holding up my phone like this. And I know a lot of folks have said, I'm going to hold up my phone like this and record stuff. That's great for last minute. If you don't have anything else, but the way cell phones are running right now, that my iPhone, my iPhone 11 Pro is about $1,000. I don't necessarily want to be dropping this. Whereas, a body camera that's clipped to my person, it's hands free. I don't have to hold it. I've got my hands free to de-escalate or protect myself. And, I prefer that a little bit better, but let's jump into that topic with the time we have left. And I'll throw it over to you, Billy, because I know you're passionate about what I said as well. So
sure. So, a couple of thoughts that come to mind. One of them is chain of custody of the video. If there is an incident that happens at the church, using a body camera ensures that the video is the property of the church, and the video is not the property of whoever's actually using their iPhone. And so, if there's an embarrassing incident that happens, or there's a think about Bob Saget, just in that situation right there. His family suing the hotel to keep the body cameras that those security guards were using when they walked in the room. They're suing to keep that video from getting out there because they want to protect their family member. And so that's something we're seeing in real life today that, most of us know who Bob Saget is. But for your church, it's the same idea. Is if something happens, we don't want the video to be public knowledge. Think about the Facebook Live that was happening with the synagogue down in Texas a couple of weeks back, right? How long did it take them to turn that video off? But you don't want any of that video out. If something bad is happening on your campus, you don't want you just don't want to have more the pain to be worsened because there's a video that suddenly gets out on the street that you don't want out there. So you've got that scenario that happens with it. Another one's durability. You made the comment, I'm gonna walk up and I'm gonna have my phone in my hand and it costs $1,000. Well, what happens when that guy knocks that phone out of your hand?
For sure.
Who's paying for that, right? Is the church paying for that, or are you going to pay for that? Or, but you got a phone broken all of a sudden. If you're using one of the body cameras, most of them are designed to withstand a 5-foot drop on concrete. Most of them are designed that the end user, the person that's wearing that camera, is not able to download the video. They're not able to do anything with it at all. And then you just had that chain of custody. If an incident happens, the church is sending the video to the police department. The church is deciding where that video is going, and nobody else is. And that's that can be very reassuring if you have a situation that happens. You end up with quality. The quality of the video is better. The user is not able to turn the camera off. So the camera's recording the entire incident. You have a different point of view. So from a safety perspective, I actually am seeing what's happening right in front of me versus what's happening up in the roof. You have volume, so you can actually hear what's being said. Many of the systems, you can be in the security office and connect into that camera and listen to what's happening on that camera in real time. And so those are the reasons we recommend that you use a professional camera. There's a bunch of them out there, and I just encourage you to use one of them.
Yeah, and
Sure.
I'll jump in there. I had a chance to borrow a demo kit and work with that in my church. So I was able to demo that across 2 different churches, 2 different teams, as well as a high profile, high visibility, high risk Christian radio concert. And so there's a Christian radio artist that came to Austin, Texas. It was a big deal. It was a sold out concert. It was nighttime in the city. And so we deployed 2 of those of the demos on members. I had one on as well as one other member. and we worked the concert like we would any other safety and security event. And what was great is the ability to obviously capture all the different pieces anytime that was those engagement. And pinging off something you said, Billy, with that recording, what I loved about it was the fact that it was picking up a couple seconds before they tapped on and grabbing a little bit of time after they tapped off. So the difference is they couldn't just, oh, I'm going to shut it off now and now I'm going to do the bad thing. It actually kept recording for a little bit and you still maintained that, and they couldn't actually interfere. So checking out the body camera, you're able to magnetically attach it essentially to your shirt. So I had a magnet piece that went behind. The other one just clipped right in very quickly, right to the magnet. And I didn't even have to worry about it. It never fell off, never had a challenge. I had my hands free the entire time. And anytime I went to engage with somebody, it was just a quick tap. And all of a sudden I'm recording. And so it was great to be able to go back and look at. And I think there's a couple of different benefits of what I saw very tangibly in the moment. Was it odd getting used to in the beginning? Absolutely. I still wouldn't say I'm used to it. So there's a bit of a adjustment curve, I'd say, for most people. But you can record your response. You record that contact you're making, that engagement with a third party, whether it's in your parking lot or otherwise, whether it's low risk or high risk, you can decide and determine whether you turn it on from that perspective. But you're increasing the confidence of your leadership team to say, hey, my safety team is not doing anything below board, so to speak. It drives accountability into the team that's wearing them. Because the same reason it does that for the police department, it can do that to your safety team, so that you want to make sure that de-escalation is the primary, that they don't just over-escalate too quickly. I think we talked about the de-escalation piece, but accountability, I think, is big. Billy, you mentioned the evidence piece of being able to have that, determine what you need to do with it. I like the idea that we have game tape, so to speak. And I don't mean to belittle an incident that could be something that's negative or somebody having a severe occurrence or something there. But the reality is we can learn from that footage, and we could teach our team and we could teach others with that. And I think that's a huge value in having a body cam that I think people they underestimate that. If I saw that alone, to me, is a good enough reason to have a body cam. When you package all of the other things, it just becomes a matter of budget, because it's absolutely worth it.
Sure. All right. So real quick, I have to be unprofessional. My 8-year-old and 10-year-old are watching. And so I'm not at home. They're watching Spencer and Kara, Daddy Loves You. And so go back to your movie. But as it comes to, so you talk about, you get to see the video, you get to coach off the video. If we don't do something right, we all get to go back and look at it and say, okay, we could have handled this differently. And then I cannot remember the name of the insurance company that you guys, for firearms, who is that, James?
U.S. Law Shield.
U.S. Law Shield. Okay. So when I was listening to them at the conference, they said, if you are in an incident where you use your firearm, you're going to jail. You're going to get arrested. You're going to have a problem. And you're going to need a lawyer. You remember that? When they say that, you having a camera so that they can see exactly what you were doing and why you did it and what you said before it. That's invaluable information for your own protection. And so from the church's perspective, most churches, there's cameras in the roof, there's cameras all around the building. And so what's the difference in having a camera on your chest? It's just another safety tool.
Yep. And that's, I think as they become less in cost, as the I don't know, they hit the market more companies are looking at producing them. I know you guys have one, or actually two different models from Motorola. Those were the ones that we got the opportunity to test, which worked very effectively. I saw them in October at the conference when you guys came up. I think the biggest key and the only thing that I would say, just re-emphasizing what you guys both said, is the accountability piece of it. I know that for myself, am I perfect? Do I handle every situation 100% every time? No, I'm not. And I don't. I do the best I can with that situation. But the reality is that when I have that, I know, okay, I need to be on my, on my best, on my absolute best, because there's always video to go back. Now, after something happens, we emphasize all the time to folks, when an incident happens, take time afterwards, debrief your team, get everybody together and go through systematically and just be honest and say what went well, what didn't go well. Having that ability is no different than having your phone recording stuff at a later time to be able to say, hey, this is a good idea. Maybe we could have handled this different, or we should have done something different here. But the reality is that when we think, a lot of times we lose cost perception of phones because we have payment plans or whatever. It just doesn't seem like an expensive tool to us. So realistically, when we first started doing it, I felt like this was a solid investment and it was worthwhile. We actually started using them probably about 3 years ago, and we're now, we're looking at upgrading and maintaining it, just because we've gotten so used to it, and we like being able to go back and say, okay, let's figure out how we can do this situation better. And it's not it's not about finding fault with somebody. It's about learning, and it's about moving forward to be able to say, this is a better thing that we can do this better next time, and we can address that. So I think as time moves on, I think we're going to see a lot more churches use those. And I'm happy to see that Motorola jumped on, and to me, I also look at it like, what, if there wasn't a market for it, and this is a shameless plug for Motorola, right? If there wasn't a market for it, why would they have invested the money and the research into actually putting it together when they're a multi-billion-dollar company? So I think we're going to see that. But for sake of time, we are kind of running out. So unfortunately, I could probably talk about this for another hour, but I'll go ahead and actually pray us out, and we'll wrap up for this evening. So let's go ahead and pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, I thank you for tonight. Thank you for the opportunity that we have to get together. Thank you for Billy, and I thank you for his ministry to churches. And Lord, I just ask that you would bless him and his company and his family. And thank you for the opportunity, as always, that we have to share with churches best practices and just talk about you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Billy.
Good to see y'all.
For sure. All right. So, real quick, I will mention that next week we actually have an old favorite coming back. Aaron Wesley Hanna is actually going to be joining us, and we'll be talking about medical anomalies in church safety and security. Aaron's a great guy. He joined us at the Church Security Essentials Conference, and he's always got some great stories. He's had a pretty amazing life, actually. So I'm looking forward to that. And so we will bring him back on, and I'm happy that he's going to be joining us. As always, you can reach out to us at churchsafetyguys.com for more church safety and security resources. And moving forward, just to make an announcement and let you all know, Paul Buckner actually will no longer be joining us on the broadcast. He has actually chosen to step aside and prepare for the police academy and do some other things. So we wish him well and wish him the best and his family. And he's decided to take some personal time and focus on some family things. So moving forward, it will be for the broadcast. It'll be Mike and I, and we'll continue to joke and maybe try and come up with some puns.
I'm not sure we'll be as punny, but at the same point, we'll continue to bring in guests like Billy and others, and keep talking about all things church safety and security.
Awesome. Well, we will see you all next week. Have a blessed week. Take care. God bless. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining the Church Safety and Security broadcast with the Church Safety Guys, sponsored by Checker. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback. Be sure to share our broadcast with your teams. Join the discussion online, and for other great resources, download the Church Security app or visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com. Remember, keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and Semper Disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.